Hello, wonderful and beautiful people of God. This is your friend and your sister. You're welcome back to my channel, Elizabeth Mo. Yes, you're welcome back to my channel. And today, or for this series, I'm going to be talking about building a system, how to build a system to overcome temptations. Whether we like it or not, living in this world, you have to be tempted. And whether you fall into the temptation or not is another kettle of fish entirely. But how do we build a system to overcome those temptations so that we can be strong? Remember, our Father in heaven does not want us to fail. Our Father in heaven was tempted by Satan himself, and he did not fall. So what are those things that we thought Jesus had used? What are these things that would help us to overcome these temptations when it comes? So I'm going to be sharing 8 steps with you, and they're going to be biblical steps. The first one is to know how temptation works. Temptation itself, how does it work? You need to understand to know how temptation works. Secondly, you need to know what makes you as a person vulnerable. What makes me as a person vulnerable? We need to know that. Then we need to learn our pattern of temptation. You can say these first 3 steps has got to do with us. So we need to learn our own pattern of temptation. We all have patterns, the way things happens in our life. For example, I know the way God speaks to me. You know the way God speaks to you. You know where, when, and how he does speak to you. So you need to understand your own pattern of temptation as well. That is when you now begin to plan to avoid it. Okay, you begin to plan to avoid it. Then we go on to our survival kit or your emergency kit. When you're in trouble, what number do you call? Where do you go to? How do you get in touch? How fast? How soon? You need to understand your survival kit. Then you need to also learn something called, I would say, relaxing in the Lord, or refocusing your attention on something else. We're going to go through that step as well. The 7th step, we're going to join a small group or a support system. That's our 7th point. And our 8th point would always remember that God is on our side. So we will be going through this together. And I'll be happy for you to follow me, leave comments for me. Let's learn together in this thing. I'm always here for you when it comes to videos like this. And I really want to speak to you, and I want us to talk about it together. So let me go into it. How to win, or I'll say how to win over persistent temptations, or how to build a system against it. You have to build a system against it so you don't keep falling and falling and falling and falling. I'm not saying falling is bad. I'm not saying when you fall up, you don't get up again. But when you fall, you have lost some things before you get up. Just look at the time between you falling and the time between your fall and the rising. There is some time that has been wasted. Some things have wasted. The enemy has already achieved what he wants to eat. He has already eaten into those things at that time. And you do not want to give him a foothold. You do not want him to do that to you. So that is why we've got to avoid things like that and be the master of our games. Just because our Father is the master of the universe. Now, what is temptation? Temptation to me simply means that you've lost control over something. You've just lost control over it. You do not have control over it anymore. And once you do not have control over something, you give it towards a higher power. And who is our higher power? Is Christ, is God. The 3-in-1 God, that is our higher power. So we have to give it over to the higher power. Now, this temptation becomes persistent when its reoccurrence increases. It happens today, tomorrow, when you want to do this, then that is when you know that it is a persistent one. And guess what? The enemy will never leave you alone until you are finally flat-footed. He won't leave you alone until you're finally flat-footed. So you are the one that will need to stand, and you will stand in the name of the Lord to do what you have to do. Yeah, you will stand in the name of the Lord to do what you have to do. And then you would win it. You would win it. And how do you win this situation when it comes to temptation? It's not about resisting it. It's about rethinking. You have to rethink. But this time around, looking at it through the what? The eyes of God. That's how we're going to do it. Looking at it through the eyes of God. So you have to think your perception about temptation. The way you look at temptation, you've got to have a rethink about it. And we also need to know that as Christians, part of taking stock is to critically look at why we are failing to achieve or why you're failing to cross a hurdle. So as a Christian, you need to take stock of your life. Taking stock of your life means looking into, why am I failing to cross this hurdle? Why is it hard for me to achieve these things? That is just taking stock of your life. So you have to really do it. So we might have good intentions. We might have good natural intentions, lovely intentions, but how do we achieve it? How do we achieve it? That is where the enemy is lying. That is where it's saying. So if you have good intentions, if you have legitimate intentions, if you have natural intentions, but when you execute it at the wrong time, executing it at the wrong time, that makes it what? A temptation. Also, when you have a wrong intention, that one is just wrong. That one's just definitely what? A temptation. So there are two ways. It can be a wrong intention or it can be a right intention. And the tricky part of it for us Christians is when it is a right intention. For example, you're intending to get married as a single lady. Of course, you need to get married. But how do you go about it? That is when it becomes a temptation. You are hungry, you want to eat, but what do you eat? What do you eat? That is where the temptation comes in. You see, so it could be right and it could be wrong. So we really need to check our intentions properly to know how it's going to work for us. And there is a cycle in which this thing works, which I'm going to now start talking about it now. The first step that I talked about is for you to know how temptation works. Understand how temptation works. So that is what we're going to go into now. Understanding how temptation works. Now, you probably can't win a battle over something if you don't understand how it works. If you don't understand how something works, you cannot. If something is working this way, and then you're putting your own one this way, it cannot work. It cannot work. If I'm playing, for example, if I'm playing football now and I'm going to play against Manchester United, I need to understand how Manchester United plays football. Then I'll be able to build my own system to counter that. So if I do not understand how Manchester United plays football, I can't overcome. I can't counter them. I can't. It's going to be very important, very difficult for me. So one key thing to know is that Satan doesn't have, another key thing to know is that Satan doesn't have new ideas. He doesn't have new ideas. He is just building on what he has done to Jesus, what he has done to Adam and Eve in Genesis chapter 3, what he did to Jesus in Matthew chapter 4, which is what? The pride of life, the lust of flesh, and the lust of eyes. These three things, the pride of life, the lust of flesh, and the lust of eyes. These are the same patterns he has been making. And because we are human beings and it comes to us in this pattern, but in different ways, we fall over and over and over and over and over. So we have to look at rethink how we would respond, because you know what? This would always come. So I'm going to leave it here now at this point, and in the very next video I will continue from where I stopped. Bye.